VinceDao wrote this, and it has like 27 million views. He wrote, as an Asian, I feel I have authority on rice. Eating rice with your hands is gross, strange, and barbaric. Nobody in my family has ever done this. He acts like utensils were never invented.
I love that the Asian guy came in. He was like, yeah, I'm Asian. I can speak about this.
Yeah.
And Lane said the same thing earlier. He's like, I've been to China. Not a single person in China is eating rice with their hands.
No.
In fact, they hate eating rice with their hands so much, they invented a utensil that made it harder to eat rice, the chopstick.
Yeah.
Simu Liu meltdown at VinceDao over rice. Over rice, y'all. This dude is going back and forth with cats over rice. And it turns into a career reality check for the Marvel star.
All right, well, I guess it's time to address this, and those of you who are on X might have already seen it, but a couple of days ago, I sent out a tweet responding to the way in which New York City Socialist Mayoral Candidate Zohran Mamdani is constantly posting these pictures and videos of himself eating rice with his own hands in a very gross and disgusting way, basically to paint himself as some type of third worlder and appeal to a particular demographic of voters. And to be honest with you, I figured that was it. I say one thing about it and move on. After all, I do believe genuinely that there are much more important criticisms to be levied against him, especially on policy, than simply how he eats his rice. But for whatever reason, it went massively viral, what I said. We're talking about 36.5 million views. Even woke Hollywood celebrities were responding to it, getting mad at me. It's making news articles. Steven Crowder was talking about it. So I figured I might as well, I guess, just weigh in on this situation and kind of follow up and tell you what I think and tell you what particularly the criticism is, because this has now moved on simply from just the question of how do you eat rice. It's getting into culture, right? Assimilation into American identity. What is that supposed to mean? There's also a bunch of Asians that apparently I provoked a race war on the internet, and now they're fighting each other over you're barbaric, no, you're barbaric, and all this stuff. And I am sitting here just saying, okay, fine, might as well address this. So let's talk about the viral controversy apparently I just got into with Zohran Mamdani. And this is obviously not an apology video because I said nothing wrong, but I would like to kind of respond to what all these leftists are saying and sort of get into it on why actually, as an Asian person, I also find it to be gross and barbaric that, he's eating rice with his hands, and this is something you're running, especially as a political campaign in America. And no, in no way is it racist for instance, white American conservatives to be off-put by that. After all, this, again, is the United States of America. You do not do that here. And secondly, in a general perspective, it's not even hygienic at all. Utensils exist. They were invented. They are widespread in many parts of the first world. If you're going to participate in the first world, I think you should act like it. But anyways, we'll tell you all about apparently what happened here, and especially, again, this Hollywood celebrity, this Asian actor trying to come at me and all this stuff. But first, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. Besides this, because this is not really news or coverage, but let's get into it. I mean, honestly, I hate talking about myself or trying to wrap a video around that, but I guess we got to do this because a lot of people are asking me to address it even. So, all right, we'll get into this. So, this is the photo you can see that went viral from others over the weekend as, he's eating rice with his hands. I mean, look, what is he doing, right? And obviously, a bunch of white people were being called racist for saying, what the heck is wrong with this guy? And the leftists are like, that's just his culture. What the heck is wrong with you? So after seeing that, I decided to respond and say the following, quote, as an Asian, I feel I have authority on rice. Now, people, first of all, seem to miss the fact that this was meant to be a self-deprecating joke, okay? It's kind of a sarcastic comment. We, of course, know that these people can't comprehend that, so they're taking that super seriously. Oh, how dare you say because you're Asian you have authority on rice? Well, first of all, how dare you say I not? And secondly, you just don't understand a joke. But anyways, okay, here's what I said. As an Asian, I feel I have authority on rice, and this is not just about white people or white Americans. Eating rice with your hands is gross, strange, and barbaric. Nobody in my family has ever done this. It's not quote unquote part of my culture, right? And he acts like utensils were never invented. So that said, let us first of all address the criticism broadly, and then we'll talk about the specific criticism that people are weighing towards me, saying that I'm like a race traitor and all this. But first of all, why is it considered wrong in the United States to eat rice with your hands? Okay, so first and foremost, you can see that a bunch of leftists are coming with the example of, oh, but you eat pizza with your hands, right? You eat chicken wings or ribs, so why is it wrong to eat rice? Okay, let us explain this very simply. So the reason why a picture like this is considered gross, at least to Americans, and keep in mind, you are in America, and I think that's a point that should not be lost on anyone, but fine. But I would also argue just an objective standpoint, right? Is that a handheld food, for instance, like a pizza, like even a chicken wing or a rib or a pastry or something, is called handheld because it is particularly shaped for you to pick up and grab. So for instance, you have a pizza, right? You grab it by the end of the crust, you pick it up, you put it in your mouth. The reason why it's not considered grossly unhygienic, at least like culturally speaking, but also objectively speaking, is that you're not directly shoving your hand into your mouth, right? There's a distance between it. That's why it's a handheld food. Again, it's shaped in a way that's meant to be picked up. The same is true from some people trying to bring the example of, things like this right here. I don't know, sticky rice, sushi rice from Asian cultures. By the way, I eat all of these things with a chopstick for the record, but even then you can point out, yeah, because it's meant to be picked up. Okay, that's the difference. However, when you are simply, and I can't believe we have to explain this, but when you are simply taking loose rice, okay, not sticky rice that sticks together and is meant to be picked up, no, loose rice, and just shoving it into your mouth, okay, you are doing a couple things. First of all, you basically have to make direct mouth to hand contact, okay? You're basically like sticking almost like your fingers into your mouth in order to get all the rice inside. So it's right here, right? That's why it's kind of gross and not hygienic. Secondly, you're gonna make a massive mess, okay? Because rice is like falling all over the table. You'll just, yeah. That is disgusting. Yeah, that is, not really considered to be all that civilized to people. And, there's something very practical to do it instead. It's called, of course, a spoon, right? So, that's, of course, what a lot of people are pointing out. I stated here that eating solid handheld food with your mouth literally is not the same as scooping loose grains or kernels of rice into your mouth. The latter is messy, yes, you're making a big mess, by the way, and forces you to directly make hand-to-mouth contact. The former doesn't. How many times do we need to explain this? However, this is a tactic that you so often see from leftists, as well put here by Freedom Tunes. Yeah, this is a perfect distillation of how lefties actually argue. First of all, find two things that are different in nearly every way, right? Because eating a pizza and eating loose rice with your hands is genuinely not the same thing, okay? Two, find one superficial similarity between them, which apparently proves they're actually identical, and then, yes, argue, why are you against one but not the other? Anyways, apparently we made it all the way to the Steven Crowder show, so let's take a listen here as they make a similar argument to me, and I will back them up on this. They're actually correct.
Healthy. It's not as good to eat with your hands. Yeah, when I come from it, so it's a habit. Old habits die hard. So this was this kind of reignited a debate. And like I said, you ask yourself, why has it ignited? Right, really exclusively along party lines. VinceDao wrote this, and it has like 27 million views. He wrote, as an Asian, I feel I have authority on rice. Eating rice with your hands is gross, strange, and barbaric. Nobody in my family has ever done this. He acts like utensils were never invented. Then there was this post from Raw Egg Nationalist. Eating with your hands like this should instantly disqualify you from running for office in every single country in the Western world. 6.7 million views.
That's fair as well.
And by the way, I don't want to miss that point either, okay? That only reason, number one, why it's wrong is the hygienic or like actual physical argument around it. The other problem I have with it, other two problems actually I have with it is, first of all, we know actually that Zohran Mamdani probably does not eat like this in his private life. The guy was raised in incredible wealth, okay? Basically, his family got kicked out of Uganda and Africa because they were gentrifying and exploiting the place, and then he's going to call us colonizers when literally his family are the colonizers. But anyways, he was actually probably raised with one of these, right? A silver spoon. But no, he's putting on this fake charade to, first of all, pander to some type of immigrant population. But in the process, it's also meant to basically just be an intentional FU to American culture. And that's why I go to point number 3, right? Even if you want to make the argument that, a lot of South Asian cultures do it, and I'm sure like some others on top of that. So what's your problem? It's just their culture, man. Okay. All right. We're disregarding the fact, first of all, that some cultures can just be wrong on things. I know that's like scary or controversial to say, right? But it'd be no different than me defending East or Southeast Asian people who eat dogs or they eat bats or like weird dishes with cockroaches and all that stuff. I'd be the first to say, no, like I don't want to be associated with that culture. I will condemn that. That is disgusting. And like part of the reason actually some negative stereotypes exist about that stuff is because that stuff is happening or it used to happen. And it is actually on the decline. For instance, in Asia, it's falling out of favor because of Western pressure. But like, no, you should put pressure to say, no, like we don't want to do that. You should stop doing that. But okay, fine. Again, some cultures can be wrong, but putting that aside, okay? Even if you want to say that, this is the United States of America, okay? And it's one thing to want to eat whatever food you like or do this or that, but you're in public. You are doing something that 99% of Americans find to be gross and reprehensible. And you're presenting that as an image to people. And then when Americans, who it's their country, it's their culture, right? Rightly respond at you by saying, like, what the heck is wrong with you? Then you're going to turn around and say that you're being racist or something like that. It's like, no, you're in another country. You're refusing to adapt to our cultural norms. And then you're playing the victim when people rightly respond by saying that's gross. So that's another point to be made, right? Even if you want to defend, it's a legitimate culture, which I still think is just kind of backwards or old school and it should be modernized. But again, if you want to do that, the point about assimilation still stands. And that's, again, what he's trying to give an intentional FU to. I am basically a foreigner running for office, which he is, and I'm going to really express that to people. I'm going to say, you know, we have invaded this country, we're taking over now, and that's, again, what this really symbolizes. So don't forget that point as well.
And then
I love that the Asian guy came in. He was like, hey, yeah, I'm Asian. I can speak about this.
Yeah.
And Lane said the same thing earlier. He's like, I've been to China. Not a single person in China is eating rice with their hands.
No.
In fact, they hate eating rice with their hands so much, they invented a utensil that made it harder to eat rice, the chopstick.
Yeah.
They're tiny. You can't pick up any rice with that thing.
I know. That's what it's supposed to. Rice is supposed to clump, I guess.
Oh.
I don't know. This whole look. I don't like chopsticks.
Picky.
Sometimes I like chopsticks.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, it's just the novelty of it. I know it's inferior.
I was literally on the border between Cambodia and Vietnam in a village that didn't have electricity, and they had utensils to eat food with.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay?
Well, here's the thing. Then the left, they try and, create an equivalency. And you know it's going to be an awful comparison. So here they think like, oh, this is a dunk. Hey, look, here's a post of President Trump eating with his hands pizza. Okay, let me explain to you the difference, dumbass.
Oh, Evan loves Wolf. Good. He's an idiot.
It's bread.
Yes.
Okay, it's not wet, it's not saucy, and he's not taking a bite of pizza, carving it out of his mouth, and putting it back on the rest of the pizza to eat it.
That's not fair. You did not see, they didn't show the picture of when he was eating a lasagna. He dove right in that thing.
Sure.
Just
got a little salad.
Lasagna,
right
I'm
there.
coming.
I got 5 fingers for 7 layers. Grab it.
And then a bunch of it basically set off this inter-Asian race war on X. Someone posted, you aren't Asian, you're American. As an Asian from Asia, I have the authority to tell you that Asians have always eaten rice with their hands. I've never seen it.
Hold on, that's a Blue Sky account. Pull that back up. That's a Blue Sky guy. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Immediately disregard your opinion.
But I don't care. I still don't. Okay, fine. Even if they do it in China, I think they would probably take issue with this. We don't do that here.
Right.
Also
Okay?
true. Also true.
Here, we don't fit a family of 12 and a chicken coop on the back of a Honda Cub. We have SUV. we drive cars. Okay? All right? We're allowed to have our thing.
Yeah, completely true. And with that said, I would like to further address the very argument that was brought up in that segment as well. And people are all replying to me saying, either on one hand, they say, you're not Asian, you're American. To which I say, wow, what an insult. I can't handle it. You called me American. No. You're a part of the greatest country on earth. And it's funny because some are saying, oh, you're pandering to the white supremacists and they're never going to accept you as American. You're Asian. And then you have other leftists saying, no, you're American, not Asian. It's just so funny. Some people, this guy says, you are white in everything but blood. Actually, I'm part white, but even then, is that supposed to be what's wrong with being white? Was that a bad thing or something? I don't know. I'm going to have a better credit score or something now, I guess. I don't, what's the complaint? But okay, you know what? All right. That said, first of all, I take no issue with being called American, but even on the front of the culture itself, right? Because you're seeing comments like this. Okay, this is the Hollywood actor we keep referring to. His name is Simu Liu. Okay, I didn't know who this guy was. Apparently, he's been in some Marvel movies and stuff like that, has like a million followers on X or something like that. But he responds, and keep in mind, I believe this guy's Chinese, if I'm not mistaken. He says, "You don't have authority on Jack Blank. You're just putting your own culture down to try to make yourself more palatable to white conservatives. You dumb B-word. Acting like people don't get their hands dirty eating pizza or ribs or tacos, STFU." So this is what they're saying, right? I'm betraying the Asian race. I'm betraying my culture. But, I first of all respond by saying, if you want to, so for my background, I guess context here is necessary. I'm part Vietnamese and I'm part Italian. Okay, so that's ethnic heritage. The reason why my Vietnamese side, especially on my mom's side, is even in the United States is because basically before the war, our family were North Vietnamese aristocracy. They came down to the South, obviously, when the partition happened and all that. And my grandfather was a top military official. I think he was a general, but I don't know. The translation's kind of strange, right? A top military official who was on the Saigon airlift. He had to be airlifted out of Saigon with the American diplomats because he was that important of a figure in the South Vietnamese military, okay? So just to make that clear, it's like, I don't see myself as coming, as our family, I should say, as like, it wasn't necessary that we're refugees in that sense. I'm proud of the fact, actually, like, yeah, you could say in a sense you are descendant from aristocrats. It's not. So this is all to say, first of all, I don't view, quote unquote, my culture as some type of like barbaric caveman stuff. And it's very interesting. They keep trying to paint like all non-white people in that camp. It's like, no, actually, in my family, we don't eat rice with our hands. And if you did that, we would see you as extremely barbaric and be like, what the heck is wrong with that? You're not part of our family. We don't associate with that type of garbage, right? Because after all, right, it's not like white people are the only people in history to ever use utensils. But here's what I responded in kind, saying, first of all, my culture doesn't eat loose rice with our hands, as explained by the Steven Crowder people, and it's true, by the way. In Vietnam, people eat rice with utensils, okay? And the same is true in Cambodia, and the same true, by the way, Simu Liu, in China, where you are apparently from. So what do you mean we're throwing our own culture under the bus? It's not our culture. Our culture eats utensils like civilized people, like the Americans do as well. Okay, it turns out like there are some similarities in the world, right? So as I said, nobody in my family has ever done this. They would judge me as barbaric if I did. And the same is true with your family. So who is our culture? We don't have any association with Zohran Mamdani or whatever the heck, is going on there or what he's doing. But, as someone, this guy here, Ming, says, as a fellow person of Chinese heritage, responding to Simu Liu here, would your parents not smack you for eating rice with your hands? Yeah, you can pick up whatever, this is in Chinese, and such with your hands, but rice, you must use chopsticks or a spoon. My dad and grandparents would scold me and smack me if I put hands in my rice. And yes, that is true across many parts of the Asian continent, okay? So, I guess they're saying this because I joked about having moral authority on rice. But no, in all seriousness, apparently what you're now watching is a bunch of leftists, some of whom are Asian, but many actually not, just basically trying to force this, like, as I said, like a third world sort of behavior on a bunch of Asian people who don't want to be associated with it, right? It's like they're basically coming to millions of people in Asia and saying, this is your culture now, you will accept it. And those are the wholesome, by the way, anti-colonizer, anti-imperialist leftists who are basically saying, yeah, you must downgrade in order to do this. So this is what I said, right? These people don't care about actual Asian culture because actual Asian culture is not eating with our hands, right? They're just seething because we, the Asians, find the third worldism, yes, off-putting as well. They call us race traitors, by the way, which they keep on saying, you're betraying Vietnamese people or something, for upholding the cultural standards that our families practiced before us, which is also true, right? This is also true, okay? White people, let's be clear about this, are not the only ones in the world who use utensils. But, as I said, apparently they think all non-whites are supposed to act like cavemen, and it's racist to tell them to stop, right? It's racist to apparently innovate technology and society, right? When I say simply that things like the spoon and fork were positive innovations in human history, apparently the left says, no, you can't say that. So, that said, let us address all of these people with a very useful demonstration, because I have brought a product from Far East to explain to people, actually, that, again, Asian people are not cavemen, and we do not eat rice with our hands either. So you see this right here? Okay, let's explain this. Let's explain this like we're in the kindergarten. We're doing the show and tell at like Multicultural Day or something, okay? These are called chopsticks, okay? You know what they are? They're a form of utensils. Again, they exist on the Asian continent and Asian cultures as well. Now, let's break this down because, chopsticks can be quite practical for picking up things like, say, sushi, right? And other kind of like handheld things, noodles. Now, a lot of Asians and, even people in like my family do eat rice with chopsticks, loose rice. I personally don't prefer doing that. I actually agree with Steven Crowder on that, not because I'm incapable, but just because it's just not really all that practical, right? It's inefficient. But again, these exist. We have a utensil. Oh, yeah, it's real. It is real. Okay, It's like, this is like dealing with some like, cartoon from the 50s about like Oriental people. And the guy's like drawn like this, No, like these exist. Okay, these exist. We have utensils too, guys. This our culture. Oh, this our culture. Okay. You know what else exists in Asia though? Okay, if you don't want to eat rice with chopsticks, which honestly I understand, it's called a spoon. Okay, yes, newsflash. Now, this spoon looks a little different, sure, than the colonizer spoon, but it serves the same function. You can scoop soup with this. You can scoop rice. See this Zohran Mamdani, it exists. It exists in other cultures pretty close by to that same continent. And of course, you want to take that one step further. You want to truly prove you've assimilated into American culture. We have the colonizer spoon too, okay? So listen, in the United States of America, thanks to global trade and all the multiculturalism, quote unquote, all those things, Zohran, you have all three options here, okay? Whichever you want to do, but there are three, frankly, superior options to eating rice with, not eating rice with your hands, okay? And, frankly, if you use chopsticks in a restaurant, it is kind of seen as like foreign to American culture, and that's fine. But no one's looking at it like, oh, like, what are you doing? No, it's just like, okay, you have an interesting utensil. It's a lot different than going, okay, and I just can't believe we have to explain to people that, yes, utensils exist outside of white culture. As a matter of fact, it's actually kind of disputed who first invented utensils, but it's believed it's kind of happened concurrently, right? But it's believed it either comes from Italy during the Roman Empire or China, to which I say, I guess in a sense, I can claim as a mixed race person that I'm like the king of utensils on both sides. But, again, it's like, what is this necessity, I guess, to like try to force this, like, again, backwards behavior on a bunch of random Asian people who have also eaten with utensils for several generations and, frankly, a very long time. It's just, again, ridiculous. But anyways, that said, there's an addressing of the rice controversy, and no, I'm not apologizing for it. You should eat with utensils, food that is meant to be eaten with utensils in the United States of America. And of course, what is Zohran Mamdani still doing anytime he's criticized is he plays the victim card, and he even just did that over the weekend, now claiming not just that, people are racist for saying he should use a spoon when he eats food, but actually saying that the real victim of 9/11 apparently were the Muslims and Islamophobia. You might have heard this, but take a listen as well. And this will show you the attitude we're dealing with, where it's like, again, any criticism of anything, right? Any criticism around Zohran Mamdani, that just means you're a racist. All right, take a listen.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
I mean, just imagine saying that, running as the mayor of New York City, trying to suggest that the real victim of 9/11 was Muslim people and the Islamophobia. not the 3,000 plus Americans who died in the actual attacks themselves, right? But of course, as I said, you know, this is what they do. They basically play this perpetual victim thing, and, you know, if you criticize them for whatever reason, Zohran does this all the time, by the way. You're just criticizing me because I'm a Muslim. You hate me because I'm Muslim? It's like, no, that's not it goes a lot deeper than that. Okay, let me just say that, Zohran Mamdani. But, you know, you also can get a type of picture of the people, the millions of people apparently on the internet who are so mad at what I said about him because, well, you can just take a look at the big mega rally he did with AOC, Letitia James, and a bunch of other lunatics yesterday. And as you could expect, the entire thing is, yes, a complete freak show.
But we must remember, in a time such as this, we are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
We're not the crazy ones, New York City. We're totally normal. Leftists in 2025, really. But, you know, okay, so we just understand this is what we're dealing with, all right? We are indeed dealing with the crazy ones. That's, of course, why they get so upset when you try to criticize anything as minor as, you know, eating rice with your own hands. But essentially, guys, well, there you have it. Just want to reiterate here, it is not my quote-unquote culture to people to eat rice with our hands. We don't do this, believe it or not, okay? We also have this, we also have stuff, okay? Look. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.